I know there's not many Vandal fans out there, but those who are, the good news is we had an All-American this year, even though our team wasn't very good. Ironically, it was the punter. So, okay, Dan, you're on.
Thank you, Mr. President. And where'd Carl go? Where's Carl? Carlson. There. Congratulations, Carl. 31 years. Just goes to show that retired school administrators, teachers really have it pretty easy, because look at you. You look great. I'm glad to see everybody showed up today to watch Wiley hold court. No, wait. He holds court as a superintendent and as a formal principal. But today he gets to hold class, and that's what we're going to talk about today. You know, I stand here as a fourth-generation product of the Twin Falls School District. And most people would say, well, that's a failure there. I have nephews who are now fifth-generation Olmsteds in the Twin Falls School District. My grandfather was an early Twin Falls School Board member, and my father and my uncles all attended Bickle. I also attended Bickle, and I graduated proudly from Bickle and from O'Leary and from the old school, Twin Falls High School, in the class of 1969. And still today, in the hallowed halls of Bickle, is my portrait hanging there. Wiley said, "You haven't seen it lately, have you? It's got a bullet hole and an arrow in it." For about a year, a long-range facilities planning committee, who was tasked by Wiley and his staff, made up of community members, administrators, teachers, other interested citizens, have been working on what we considered the long-range plan for the Twin Falls School District. We all here are invested in the Twin Falls School District, and I just outlined my history with the Twin Falls School District. And this Long-Range Facilities Planning Committee, actually this is the second one that I've served on in the last 10 years or so, came up with some recommendations for the upcoming, hopefully upcoming construction and moving this district forward with new construction on into the next 25, 30 years, 50 years. We did come up after a lot of consideration, a lot of deliberation and debate, because we're talking about a fairly big number here with a plan to increase the facilities here at the Twin Falls School District. Part of what I do in my day job is work with economic developers and site consultants. And Melinda will know this well, and so will Leon, that usually the very first question when a company comes to town, or a site, and Gary too, Gary's been involved in a lot of these, site selectors come to town, they might want to look at a piece of property, they might want to talk about power rates or city services or that kind of thing, but really what they want to talk about is the Blue Lakes Country Club. No, just kidding. They want to talk about the status of your schools. And they can gauge a lot about a community by how well the community supports the schools. Not only in the past and the present, but also what the plans are for the future. And I've seen that not just here in Twin Falls, but in Jerome, up in the Wood River Valley, every place that I deal with economic developers or site consultants, that is the very first question. And we can proudly say here that we are on top of it, and we can back that up with facts and figures, success rates, and then we also have to bring in the college. So the combination of the Twin Falls School District and the College of Southern Idaho, this is a formidable team. And people look at this, and we usually will make the first cut, and we stay on that list for companies who are looking to locate or expand, or in some cases even stay here. They stay here because of the schools. This is the first time Wiley and I have done this presentation together, so I'm going to turn over the majority of the presentation to Wiley, and he can hold class and talk about the upcoming bond election levy. And then when there are the hard, tough questions, he can answer those and I'll finish with something else. So, Superintendent of Instruction, Wiley Dobbs.
Thank you, Dan. There will be a quiz. Your ticket out the door is an 85%, so good luck to you. As Dan mentioned, we did have a great committee that worked very hard. We met 8 times. This is over a year ago that we started. Each meeting went 3.5 hours long, so we spent a considerable amount of time looking at the things that are listed on the screen here. We particularly looked at growth, and we took into consideration the projections that we've seen, all of us have seen from the city when they were doing the wastewater treatment bond levy. And so we looked at those things, and we looked at our enrollment history and the trends that we're seeing in our school district. And the committee did make a recommendation to the school board back in July, and the school board spent 2.5 months deliberating on that recommendation. And on November 11th, they accepted the recommendation in full. They didn't make any changes to the recommendations of the recommendation of the committee. The recommendation is for a $73.8 million levy for over 25 years, and it includes 2 elementary schools with a capacity of 650 students each, a middle school with a capacity of 1,000 students, and then continued renovation of Twin Falls High School, including air conditioning, fire protection, roof repairs, and new windows. Phase 2 of Canyon Ridge High School, an addition of 280 student expansion to that school, and then improved safety measures at all schools, each of the 13 schools in the Twin Falls School District. We all know about the success that we've had in the Twin Falls area recently, really the Magic Valley, recently with economic development. Many of the people who are responsible for this, Melinda and others, are in this room today. And we know, as Dan has mentioned, that a big part of that has been schools. Companies that are looking to locate in Twin Falls, they want to know a couple of things. One, what kind of workers are we turning out of our schools? They want people who can be employed, good workers, a good working population. But they also want to know about the schools because they're bringing their families here. They're bringing their kids, and they want to know that we have good schools. And so, fortunately, we do have a good school district. We have the College of Southern Idaho, and that does make a very good impression upon businesses that are located in Twin Falls. You guys know this. I'm preaching to the choir here, but just in this last year, we've brought 1,200 new jobs to Twin Falls, $750 million in capital investment. You know the Big East, Chobani, Glanbia, Cliff Bar, Frulac, of course, is over in Rupert area. But those are the big ones. Smaller businesses are also locating here. We're attracting businesses of all sizes. And along with this growth comes students and our responsibility for schools. In the past decade, we've grown every year over the past decade, at least 1.5% and upwards of actually a little over 4% the last 2 years. Each of the last 2 years, we've grown by 4%. 4% is over 350 students, just so you know that. So over the last 2 years, we've actually grown by 721 students. That would fill a school. Now, they're not all elementary students, but you get the picture. We're growing, and we're growing pretty rapidly. And our projection is that by the year 2020, we'll have an additional 3,000 students if we keep growing at the rate that we project and that is projected by the city and their figures. This looks at the last 5 years. In the past 5 years, we've grown by 1,000 students. But you can take a look at the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, we've grown by 721 students. So the last 2 years, we've grown at a 4% rate. Our projections that we used within our committee was 2%. So it's fairly conservative, very conservative compared to the actual numbers we've had the last 2 years. And I do want to point out that these numbers were taken in the fourth Friday of September, so that we can compare every year with the same date, the fourth Friday in September. Since the fourth Friday in September, we've grown by another 50 students. So we're almost at 6,700 students in the Twin Falls School District. So they didn't stop coming on the fourth Friday in September either. We're continuing to grow as the year goes by. And capacity, one of the things we looked at within our committee is the capacity. Currently, Twin Falls schools are either at or nearing capacity. With projected growth, soon will be overcrowded. So we know that going in. And our goal is to keep up rather than catch up. Somebody asked me the other day, what would catch up look like? Catch up would look like putting modular units down. And I have to tell you that to put a modular unit down, a 4-classroom modular unit, 4 classrooms, it costs $300,000. And the efficiency is not very good. It costs about 5 times the amount to heat and cool a modular classroom as compared to regular classrooms in our schools. So truly, catching up is more expensive than keeping up. And now take a quick look at all of the bond items individually. As I mentioned, the 2 new elementary schools would be 650 student capacity each. John Miller spoke last night to the After Hours Club, and he said something that made a lot of sense. We talked about this within the committee, and that is we could have made mega elementary schools. We could have added on to some of the elementary schools we have. We could have made mega middle schools as well. But the committee really looked at that and determined that that educationally was not the best practice. Too many kids fall through the cracks when you have mega middle schools. And at some point, you're going to have to build another middle school. And if you've created 2 1,500 student capacity middle schools, let's say, then are you going to add on a small one? Are you going to add on a bigger one and leave it empty? So it just didn't make sense in the committee work that we did to do that, educationally or even financially. And it's estimated that one of the 2 elementary schools included in this bond levy will be full when we open the school in 2016. It takes about a year to plan a new school, another 1.5 years to build it for an elementary school. Middle school would have 1,000 student capacity, and it's estimated that our middle schools will be over capacity starting next school year. That's where the bottleneck really occurred with the last work that we did. We freed up some space in the elementary schools by moving the 6th graders up to middle school. We opened a new high school and moved the 9th graders up to the high school, but we still have the 3 grade levels at the middle school level. And so that's where we truly have a bottleneck. We've done quite a bit of work at Twin Falls High School. Back in 2006, we put some money in the bond levy toward that. These were the things that we talked about doing. Some of those were changed. For example, the 9th grade wing. We had talked about creating a sheltered area for 9th graders at Twin Falls High School. We opened up school. 9th graders went to high school at Canyon Ridge and Twin Falls High School, and lo and behold, they did just fine. And so it was that plan we felt wasn't worth the money to be spent. It just wasn't needed. The 9th graders are doing well. We talked about expanding the cafeteria, but that would have been at the loss of 6 or 7 classrooms. So we're looking at different ideas there. But we've done the things that are listed on the right to the tune of $5.5 million. We're in the process of remodeling B and Q wing areas. And so with all said and done, we will have put $7 million into renovation at Twin Falls High School, and another $7.5 million is planned with the bond levy work. It's the only building that we have that doesn't have air conditioning throughout. In fact, I'd say less than half of the buildings that are associated with Twin Falls High School has air conditioning. And so if this bond levy passes, we will have put the amount of money into Twin Falls High School and renovation continued upkeep that would have equaled the amount to build an elementary school. So a lot of tender loving care has gone into Twin Falls High School. And as a result, we'll be able to use it for many, many, many more decades into the future. I do like to point out that it is 61 years old, Twin Falls High School. Canyon Ridge Phase 2, back when we passed the bond levy in 2006, we projected that about now Canyon Ridge would be nearing the capacity that we had set, which is 1,200 students. we have created we have 1,200 students right now at Canyon Ridge. Twin Falls High School, we have over 1,100, so the schools are just about equal in enrollment size. But we projected that come about mid-decade, this decade, we would need to build another elementary school and a middle school and add on to Canyon Ridge. We missed it by a little bit. We need 2 elementary schools. We've grown faster than we thought we would. But we did project that much at least. One of the things the committee felt was important was to keep Canyon Ridge High School and Twin Falls High School at the same capacity so that they both can remain equal, fairly equal in enrollment, stay in the same categories for athletics and activities. Safety and security measures in this plan is budgeted $100,000 per school, so $1.3 million that will go toward safety and security. Some of the things we talked about within the committee is the need to update and upgrade and add more cameras to our video surveillance equipment, special locks on doors. I think it's important to point out Sandy Hook Elementary School disaster happened just about a year ago. And Sandy Hook Elementary School had $1 million more in security equipment than any one of our elementary schools. $1 million more. And it didn't work. So the things that you see that are listed below here, the continued focus on key strategies, that's where we get the most bang for our bucks. We know that working with our school resource officers, we have built good relationships. Kids report things, teachers report things, parents report things, so that we can get on it before it happens. And we've been really successful with those kinds of strategies. But there are some needs at our schools in terms of equipment, and that's what this addresses. And there is an estimated cost of the projected and the completion dates. You can see that the elementary schools would be ready for business in the fall of 2016. Middle school takes another year, so it would be ready fall of 2017. Canyon Ridge classrooms would be ready by the fall of 2016. Twin Falls High School is kind of a different animal. We have to work that in projects or in phases, because you can't close the whole school down and remodel it. You have to kind of work around the remodels. But we know and feel pretty strongly we'd be able to get after things like air conditioning, the roofing, immediately if this bond levy passes. And then safety and security measures. Some schools might need more than $100,000, some less. So we'll be working with, and there are going to be different needs at all of the schools. So we'll work with administration, teachers, parents to identify what can be done to enhance security and safety. A lot of people want to know, okay, where are the schools going to go? Here's a map of the Twin Falls School District. And we have had an ad hoc committee work on this, and they've come out with a recommendation. They've recommended that one of the elementary schools would be in the east. The middle school would go in the south. We have a middle school in the east and a middle school in the west. And then another elementary school in the northwest, which is the fastest growing part of Twin Falls. We do have pieces of property in each one of those triangles. Now, having said that, some of the properties may not be suited best for schools. For example, we have property across Hankins from the Boy Scouts office. Kids would have to cross Hankins, not very safe. Plus, utilities just aren't available or would be very expensive to provide. So we are looking and are working to perhaps sell some of the property that we have, trade some of the property we have, perhaps buy some new property that would work. But here is the general locations that we've come up with where our schools will go if the bond levy passes. Everybody, of course, wants to know about taxes. Really, the increase will be pretty reasonable. Of course, if you ask the superintendent, he's going to say something like that. But I really do feel like it's very reasonable. The tax increase would be 66 cents per thousand taxable value. That would be after the homeowner's exemption. For instance, if you have a home that's $150,000, $75,000, it is exempt. So you'd pay the 66 cents on the other $75,000. It would come out to approximately $4.13 per month, or less than $50 per year. So really quite a reasonable tax increase for the amount of school space that we're creating. A lot of people want to know where we stack up when compared to other school districts. The 12 largest school districts in Idaho are listed across the bottom. Twin Falls is the 8th largest school district in Idaho. If this bond levy passes, it would put us right about in the middle when compared to the other school districts. And our school district per capita is the fastest growing district of all the districts that are listed here. Twin Falls is really booming. The election will be March 11th from 8 to 8. You can register, you can vote early if you'd like. The information is in the brochure that you have on your, in front of you. So if you want to vote early or vote absentee, you certainly can. It does require a supermajority, so 2/3 supermajority in order to pass. And with that, we have a short video that we'll show you, and then think of some questions you'd like to ask. The question, in case you couldn't hear it over here, is how did we come up with the cost projections for each of the projects that are listed? We work with Hummel Architects. They actually have a professional projector of costs, and their company worked with that professional person to come up with the cost projections.
So they could be higher or lower.
Well, they probably will be a little higher, a little lower. We're hoping not much higher or not much lower. if you saw the picture of Bickle, and did you notice little Danny Olmsted was standing there with the basins? Dick, you had a question.
My question was, what about the prospects for the teachers, the staff to do buildings? Because that seems like an awfully important situation too.
Yeah, the question is about staffing and the cost involved in staffing a new school. Actually, we just did this at Canyon Ridge High School. Most of the teachers that went to Canyon Ridge that first year were reassigned from Twin Falls High School and moved over because they had been growing from within, over the years it was being built. Over the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see some crowding taking place. And so a lot of the staffing in the elementary schools will be movement of teachers from current schools over. And then, of course, as we're growing, we'll be adding some more. The real work, so I'm not worried about teachers and the money for teachers because it comes with the enrollment. The money for staffing comes with enrollment. The real challenge comes with custodial services, principals, vice principals, athletic directors, those kinds of things. But probably, it's arguable, but maybe the toughest time in school districts in at least the last 40 or 50 years came around the time we opened Canyon Ridge High School, right in the middle of the Great Recession, and we were very successful with that. So I have the utmost confidence that will go smoothly again. Yes, Don?
How many years is this bond projected to run? Get everything paid for?
I might need some help with that one. Is that 2025? It's 25 years, so it would be about 2040. Yeah, 2038, 2040. So 25 years. Often, and in all the bond levies that I've been associated with in Twin Falls, we've paid them off early, though, because growth. Somebody else had a question, Rich?
How many registered voters are there for the school district 411, and how many voted in the last school bond election?
Well, I think it's around 20,000 people that are, maybe a little bit more than that. I think we were told 21,000, weren't we? I think it's been identified 21,000, and that's a ballpark, are registered to vote or could vote. In the last school bond levy election in 2006 that provided Canyon Ridge and additions and so forth, about 1 out of every 3 people who could vote voted. So about 33%. In the supplemental levy election that we had last year, less even still, about 1 out of every 10 people who could vote voted. So to me, that's not alarming as a superintendent, it's alarming as an American. And so we're doing our best to get the word out, to promote the idea of getting informed, getting registered, and voting. We stop short there. We are not going to tell you how to vote, but we really would like to see the numbers get toward the 50% level at least.
This is a supermajority, right?
Correct. And in the 2006 election, just trivial, but it had a pass rate of 67.8%. So it passed by 78 votes. And as I recall, there were 4,567 yes votes. So probably about 7,000 people voted.
What's the balance left on that prior levy, and was that a 25-year levy too?
It was 25-year. No, was it 20? It was 20-year levy. It was a 20-year levy, and the balance comes due 2025. But there was enough room that we've created to layer some of it in. I will tell you this too: the fact that Chobani exists brings that levy rate. If Chobani wouldn't have existed, the number I gave you, 66 cents per thousand taxable value, would have been over $1. So I can guarantee you that we won't go over the 66 cents. It's likely that we'll come under it because of the growth and development we have in our community. And that figure was arrived at with pretty conservative estimates too, because we don't want to say it's going to be 66 cents and it comes in over that. But if I were a betting guy, and sometimes I do, I'd bet that it comes under.
Nancy's got a question.
Oh, sorry, Nancy.
In one of our earlier presentations, there was a discussion about the limitations on our infrastructure right now for any more development or growth or all that. How does that feed into building these schools?
Well, one of the neat things, one of the committee members that we had is a city employee, works as an engineer within the city. I think it's an engineer, planner within the city. And he was able to help us with that information. And of course, wastewater improvements opened that situation up. There are some issues related to access to water and so forth. We know utility-wise, the property we own and some of the property we own will be more expensive to get attached to utilities and so forth. So that's why we're looking to trade. And I'd open that up to maybe Melinda. Do you want to add anything to that answer? She says no, she does not want to add anything. Carl Snow? It's actually a 2-year levy, so we have another year and a half on that. Yeah. Right, and we have a budget advisory committee that will be advising us as we move into the future. We all know that through the recession that we've had some real struggles in getting money from the state, and we've had to rely on supplemental levies. They'll be identifying and helping us through the next round. Hopefully things are going to get better. You know, it's been fairly optimistic the last few weeks as far as more money coming to the school districts, but we'll still be below the levels we were when this thing started, and we've got about 1,000 more students than we had at that time. So I know we're getting close to the end of our time. Dan would like to wrap it up. I want to thank you very much for your time and encourage you to vote.